Good evening, everybody. Wow, I think that was the fastest time it has started a live show. I'm like, usually it takes, like 30 to 60 seconds for this sucker to actually get going. But tonight, we're fast and sassy, apparently. I'm Stephanie from Stephanie's Book Reports, and this is That's Novel. Thank you for joining us this evening. And so a little bit of housekeeping. The last couple of shows, towards the end, my computer has completely frozen. So hopefully tonight it won't freeze. I'm not doing anything different. I'm just sitting here in my chair. Nothing is, out of the abnormal. But I think YouTube has had some issues or something. So hopefully we won't have anything. If it freezes, I'll be back on with my phone as quickly as I possibly can get on. So y'all just hang tight. Also, if you're on your computer, to the right is a live chat box, and feel free to ask questions in there or say hello or whichever. I'm going to be looking back and forth from my screen here, of which I can see myself, to the main screen where the live chat box is. If you're on your phone, I think there's a button or something, a blue button that says live chat. Isn't that right, Donna? It says live chat or something. I have no idea where it is on the iPad. I've looked on my iPad to see if I can find the live chat several times, but I think it's different because I have to sign in through the Creator Studio instead of what y'all see. So I don't know where it is on the iPad for the live chat, but it's got to be in there somewhere. Anyway, so feel free to say hello and, just comment away, ask questions, whatever. We are happy to, I'm happy to read them on, you need the app, the YouTube app, right? Donna, she's typing while I'm trying to feel like, I don't know, because my stuff is always different on the Creator Studio side, and so I'm always having to ask her to clarify. So anyway, this evening I have Felita Daniels. She used to be a blogger, and you're not blogging anymore, right?
No, I am not. I closed down the blog so that I could focus more on my writing. And obviously, blogging takes quite a bit of time. And part of the reason I started the blog 3 or 4 years ago, I guess it was when I started it, was I wanted to learn about that side of it and see how book tours worked and see what readers wanted to read about and all that. So I felt like I really got a good handle on things and what authors needed from bloggers also. So I kind of got a behind the scenes look.
Most definitely. It's a whole different world on this side of things versus the author side of things. It's two different beasts, I think.
And a lot of times the two people on the different sides, they don't always understand how it works. I had one author one day was talking about, well, when a blog didn't post or something, and he was doing a book tour, and he was upset because he said that's what they get paid for. And I said, oh, wait a minute, no, the bloggers aren't getting paid that money. Your tour company that arranges all of it gets paid that money. The blogger themselves do not get paid that money. And so he just totally did not know that was the mechanism and how it worked and all that stuff. Because I'm sure he would have been much more gracious about all these bloggers that were posting for him if he understood.
Yes, exactly. We don't get paid. The only payment we get is a free book, So, I mean, yeah, we get a book that might be anywhere from 99 cents to $3 or $4. I mean, depends on who publishes it. It could be up to $14, but I mean, it's really all we get is the advanced copy of the book to review. We have to spend the time to review. We have to spend the time to put the post together. We have to we have to read the book. We have to spend the time, which it usually takes me a while to write a review. I procrastinate a bunch, especially even time trying to get my thoughts together for a review. It can take me 30 minutes to write one. Of course, usually my reviews are
more. I found too that when the the review was maybe not a 5-star, I took a lot more time because I wanted to make sure I highlighted where the author's strong points were, along with, well, where I thought maybe this book was let me down a little bit, maybe, you know. So I think I actually spent more time on the less than glowing reviews than, I mean, because it's easy to gush over something you loved. It's a little bit more, you have to spend a little bit more time choosing each one of your words more carefully. And even a book that maybe I didn't appreciate, someone else may love, because the things that I'm drawn to may not matter to someone else, and vice versa. So when I did a review and it wasn't a 5-star for me or a 4-star for me, I took the time to describe and really outline why or what, not just say, you know, kind of thing. Because different people are looking for different things in books.
Right. Exactly. I had one of those today, actually. One of my favorite suspense, typically she writes suspense, romantic suspense, but this was just a contemporary romance. I mean, not just is a bad thing, but anyway, for her, I prefer her writing suspense than just contemporary romance. And it was a 3-star review for me, and I felt really bad about writing it, but I had to say why, you know, in my review. And so I'm like, I hope this makes sense, but when people read the book that are typical fans of hers, maybe they'll get where I'm coming from.
Yes.
But, you know, and I'm just like,
and a 3-star, in my opinion, is not a bad review. I mean, if you got a C in something in school, that's not bad. But there are so many people that they want to get a 5-star. But I'm sorry, but to me, a 5-star has to really be a knock my socks off kind of book. Because if you give every book that's just pretty good a 5-star, then what do you do when you really have a knock your socks off book? So I may be, you know, personally a little bit on the other side, and maybe that was because I wanted to be a writer, and I'm looking at things a little bit more critically than just the enjoyment factor, you know. So those are all things in there, but I think I was always very fair, you know, because as a writer too, I don't want to go away from a book review and not know what was wrong with the book or what I needed to work on. Do I need to work on my characters, or do I need to work on my grammar, or maybe I didn't have enough description and setting. I could maybe go into a book and start mucking it up thinking I was fixing it, and then I break what was actually working.
Exactly. Totally just
So
click to the opposite side of where you wanted to go. Right.
Because you were guessing, saying, I wonder if this was what they didn't like, you know, kind of thing. So
yes, I've been blogging for 4.5 years, working on my 5th year. And I have found the longer I blog, the more selective I am about how, you know, what books get 5 stars from me. And it's a little bit more picky. Whereas, like, I noticed a couple years ago, I guess, I had like 75 5-star books, but I had read like over 200 and some odd, 200, I mean, it was well over 200 books that year, but I still had 75 5-star books. And I'm like, surely not all that many books are 5-star, at least 200. And then I was going through trying to pick out my top 10, you know, and I'm like, why did I 5-star that book? Why did I 5-star that book? You know, going back through, like, I can't even remember anything about this book. Why did I give it 5 stars? You know, it was bad.
And so, and the other thing, I had someone one time in a conversation about, well, that blogger always gives everything 5 and 4 stars, so they must all be fake. And I said, no, that's not necessarily true either. If you're going through 300 or 30 requests to have their book reviewed, you start getting really good at looking at those blurbs. And I'll tell you that the other thing, I would always look at the read inside, because if it was a hot mess the first 5 pages, I'm not going to assume it's going to get any better. So you actually start screening better the more you do book reviews, where you realize this is not going to be something I'm going to enjoy. So I should not review this book because it's not a genre I like, or, you know, whatever the factors in it that are in it are. I mean, I was one time, and this was not someone that asked me to review their book. I was at a writer's meeting, and somebody asked me to look at their little piece. It was kind of like a critiquing thing. And this whole chunk that he had me read was really depressing. And it was you know, it was about this woman who's captured and there's a war and horrible things happen to her. And I was like, does it get any better? And he says, oh no, actually it gets worse. And I was like, I don't think I want to read this, you know. So
It's not for me. Sorry.
yeah, I don't want to go down this deep dark hole of tar pit, whatever, you know, kind of thing. So, but now someone else may really love reading about war and trials and tribulations and all that kind of thing. I'm not necessarily saying I want a happy ending all the time, but I'm a hopeful person and a positive person. And I guess I just don't see the purpose of getting myself depressed for a couple hours. So.
Right. Exactly. Because who wants to be, I mean, life is hard enough as it is. Who wants to really be, I don't know. I mean, I can read like psychological thrillers and stuff like that, you know, suspense, the murder, kidnapping, all those things, because they happen in everyday life. And then typically at the end, you have some kind of resolution, a happy ending or happy-ish.
Or justice. Justice is served. Or,
yes. And so you're, I mean, it's good. You know, you can end it and move on and then whatever. But yeah, those depressing, no. And I surely can't read self-help books because I'm just like, I could tell you this without even, I mean, you know, there's some that like for college I had to read, you know, some parts of some self-help stuff for my major. And I'm like, could have written this. You know, this is a no-brainer. Like, really, people are, you know, making New York Times bestsellers list off of these things that I'm thinking it should be common sense. You know, I mean, some of these things, and I hate to say that, some people will be like, but I love those things. Yes, I know, but to me, that's not my thing. And that's why I read romance, whereas there will be other people that would be like, I ain't reading a romance book. Are you kidding me? You know. I get it.
You know,
a nice cup of tea, so.
The Lord made roses, he made carnations, he made all sorts of flowers out there. So obviously he knew that we all like variety and we all like different things, different smells, different colors, different shapes. So I think that books is just the same follow through with that. Different things are entertaining for different people. And it's not that there's this flower is more valuable than that flower, or that there's, you know, there's just variety, because
yes.
he likes that in his world, kind of thing.
Right? It's the spice of life kind of thing. Oh, I have to my tea. Sorry. Yes. So you've gotten like the exact opposite. You've gone from one side to the other side. You've gone from like nonfiction writing for your blogger how-to book to now you're doing fiction, mystery. Are you doing, is it romance included, or is it just mystery, suspense? What's your?
I would love to be recognized as a mystery writer. That's what I set out to do and want to do as far as a long-running career. I've got the Anthon Group series coming out. The first of those books, I'll show the cover. The first of the books is, this one's going to, oh, there's some glare. Let's see here. Maybe you can see that. I'm just kind of looking at my little preview. This comes out at the end of October. And what happened was I started writing that. And as I said, I was doing the blog, and I had joined several local writing groups. And when some of the girls, well, there's guys in the group too, but when they asked, well, how do we get our books reviewed on blogs? So I said I would do a workshop for the group. And as I was getting all this material together and these links and this stuff, I thought, good grief, when I take my handouts to Kinko's, it's going to cost a fortune, right? To print everything up to hand out to everybody. But I didn't want to be repeating URLs all day long up there and everybody writing them down, and I couldn't get to the meat of the things I wanted to share with them. So I thought, well, I'll just make a little booklet. I'll make a little booklet and give them a booklet instead of handouts. And this is still part of my long-range learning curve. I thought, I'll figure out how to use CreateSpace when I do this for the workshop. So, yeah, I even said workshop materials. Oh, I got to put it up high enough. I put workshop materials. So everybody that came to the workshop went home with like this 68-page booklet. And instead of a bunch of pieces of paper stapled together, you know, that where are they going to find that and all that stuff. So they could relax from scribbling notes of writing down the URLs and all that kind of stuff. And they knew that they were taking it home and they could look through it again, you know, because you know, sometimes when you go to a session like that, there's so much stuff dumped into your brain all at once, and it can be kind of overwhelming. So they took that home, and then I went home later, and then I added some more stuff, and I added some more stuff. So it ended up, what's on Amazon now is like 100 pages, I believe, whereas the workshop handout was like a 68 page. So it's now 100 pages on there. And in November, in my little calendar thing I was telling you about, all my plots and plans, I'm set to go through it, revise it, double check all the links. And of course, I need to add things to it because Amazon always changes the game. They upped a customer has to have spent $50 with them. They've changed where now they show the verified reviews, and the unverifieds are kind of invisible unless you know to click a little button. And so there's some other things I need to add into it to keep it up to date. And then also to take out the references to, you know, Lilac Reviews blog, which I've taken down now. And part of taking that down was, you know, web hosting is kind of crazy too. You know, I got to that point where the web hoster said, oh, well, yeah, that nice little introductory rate that you had, well, we're taking that away now. And I thought, well, I've got to do the author platform, and I've got to be busy writing. So I thought, I've learned what I needed to learn out of that, and it's time to just go ahead and take it down. So, then I'm still writing on the Case of the Sad Sons, working on that. And then one of my authors groups said, oh, this one gal said, I'm going to run this Paper Steel Press, and I'm taking synopsises to be in an anthology. And the writers group I'm in, that particular one, is majority romance writers. But there are a couple science fiction and a couple of high fantasy. And I thought, well, this would be a way to really get to know these girls better. And some of these other girls, women, I should say, I guess, they, like, one of them has like more than 20 books. She's written for Harlequin for years. And a couple of the other women had multiple books out. And I thought, well, this would be, you know, I'm all about the learning. I thought, right, exactly. I'll learn how to do a synopsis. I'll turn it in. I'll go through the process and see what I learn. So, and I'm thinking anthology, short story, right? Mm-hmm. So I turned in my little synopsis, and I told the publisher, I said, now, you know, you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings because I'm not a romance writer, but I thought this was would be a good experience for me. And she was doing a really cool theme, and I'll hold up this book. It's called Masquerade. So I have a little novella in here called Andromeda's Gift. And it, as life happens, you know, I told her, I said, well, I'm not sure I can really write a romance, but what she was doing was all the stories took place the same night, at the same ball, at the same masquerade, and there were different paranormal people in it. So I picked the psychic who could talk to ghosts. There's vampires in it, there's fairies, there's trolls, and some of the characters weave through different stories. So it was kind of a logistics nightmare for her as an editor. But I thought that sounded intriguing. So I put my name in the hat and did a synopsis. I'd never done a synopsis before. She said, oh, we like your synopsis. Yes. So your novella should be I was like, my eyes got big. I was like, novella? I thought I was signing up for a short story. And it's set in Neo-Victorian time period. I was like, Neo-Victorian.
Now you got to do some research.
Yes. So, and I'll share the story with you, and I've been telling people this. I mean, it was a great learning experience. I'd start writing, and I'd be like, oh no, they wouldn't say that. Did that word even exist then? I don't, and I'd be deleting, and I'd write a sentence and I'd delete, right? So I thought, I got to get this Neo-Victorian time period down. I got to figure out what to do with this. So I put my little, you know, brainiac hat on and said, how can I solve this problem quickly because I have a deadline? Well, there is a well-known mystery writer called Wilkie Collins, and he has a like 500 or 800 page, it's like mammoth, I think it's 800 page story called The Woman in White, and it's set in Victorian time period. So I got the book on tape, you know, the Audible, right? And so while I'm at work, I'm listening So I hear the panter of the sentences, and I realize, oh, a girl couldn't do this. A guy has to escort her, and this and that and the other thing. So I listened to that, and like with 800 pages, I got to hear a lot of it all day long. So by the time I was like 10 or 12
scribbling notes furiously.
or when I hear a word, I'd say, oh, that's a cool word, and I'd scribble it down, and see if I could figure out a place to put that word in my story. But it got my brain going on a different wavelength, and by the time I was like in the middle of the novella for Andromeda's Gift, I was typing stuff, it was flowing. I didn't even have to think twice about how they would phrase it, how they would say. So by the time I got to the bottom or the end of the story, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then I had that thing that all writers have. This is crap. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Why did I think I could do this? So I turn it in and I say to the editor, you can just chuck it. Don't worry about it. I understand, because, I've got it in my head that all these other authors have multiple books out. And who was I to think I could write a romance? And what my character does in here is she can see ghosts. So I told her that I was going to do a little bit of kind of matchmaking. Like, for example, one of my ghosts is he is worried about his widow he's left behind. Someone's courting her, and they're pretending to be a nice gentleman, but they're really a scoundrel. So he wants Andromeda to help his widow find happiness. So my story is a little bit more about matchmaking, sort of, and that little mystery writer in me interweaved these three stories and plotted little things, so that by the end they all just kind of clicked together. And I really enjoyed that part. So that was a really fun thing for me to do and for me to write. I don't, as I said, I don't perceive that I will continue to write paranormal romance. However, my daughter-in-law read the story, and I put this little twist ending hint at the bottom of the story. And I actually told the editor, you can chop this chunk off and this will stay a happy ending. But if you want this little kind of twisty, hint at something diabolical, you can leave this part on. And the editor liked it, but what she did was she pulled it off and she made an epilogue and put that chunk down at the end. Well, my daughter was like, I gotta find out what happens to those two people. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know what I just did. So and
got to
then,
continue writing.
Yeah. And the editor said, well, and we were talking at a lunch, some of the authors, a couple of, I don't know, 2 months later about something or other. And the editor somebody else mentioned about writing a continuing story. And the editor says, well, I get first writer refusal on Felitas. And it hadn't occurred to me at that time, but yes. So now I'm committed that if I do write that continuing story, I have to give it to her to look at first and decide if she wants to publish it. So another lesson learned. Because at the time I was writing it, it didn't occur to me there would be a further story kind of thing. So, but the Case of the Sad Sons, the Anthon Group, they are like a high-tech kind of accounting agency, and Laura Anthony is a fraud investigator and a forensic accountant. She has a computer guy, Mark, and Ginger is her in-house counsel for all things legal. And then Mark is a former homicide detective, and he rents out space out of her office. But then if she maybe needs somebody tailed, then she pays him by the hour to do that. But I thought that way he could take his own cases on. So down the road, you know how sometimes when you have mysteries that always happen a certain way, I figured down the road at book 8 or something, I could have him do his own case that was more hardcore PI or whatever, to give it a little bit of variety. And in the course of the series, in one book, maybe 2 of the characters are more predominant, but maybe the next book, Tommy shines and gets a lot more attention, kind of thing. So there's a little bit of flexibility on that, but all their skill sets work together and they're like a family, and I'm having a good time doing it. But it did take me longer than I thought. And I shared with you before we started, some things, you think, oh, this will take me this much time, and you start doing it, and oh, I need to go get an ISBN number. Where do I get those? Every step seems to have extra little things that you've got to research and figure out and all that kind of stuff. So I did find out with Masquerade, with the editor, that I have a problem with passive voice sometimes. So I have tried to make a study of passive voice so that I can edit that out before I get things to the editor. So, so there's always things to learn and improve on in your craft. But I'm real happy with the characters, and I'm excited for it to come out and see what people think. You know, I let my sister read it. And back when we were younger, my sister wasn't a big reader, but now she's actually become a bit of a reader. And I gave it to her in a 3-ring binder, and I gave her some Post-it notes and a red pen, and I gave it to her. And she instant messaged me, and she said, "You're not going to be mad at me and like not talk to me, are you?" And I said, "No, I want feedback. I want you to tell me where I've gone astray, or where, because sometimes you edit things to death, and you thought you said something, and you did once upon a time, but then you chuck something and you don't realize you've lost that little piece of information that the reader knows." Anyway, so she came over the house with the 3-ring binder, and she looked very sheepish, and she said, "I ran out of Post-it notes." So I just started putting check marks at the top of the page. See, I wanted her to put a Post-it note where there was something there, so I didn't have to read every line by line, just to highlight to me where that she had a change or a circle of a word or a question mark or something. And she was like, "I ran out of Post-it notes." I was like, "Wonderful!" And she was just like relieved, But it was nice, because I have heard some other writers talk in some of the clubs that their relatives aren't supportive, or they don't know how to help or assist. They just say, "Yes, it's good." And they know how many hours you spent locked in the office or with your notebooks or whatever. So it is hard for someone to be encouraging, but also help you grow as a writer, at the same time. And sometimes your relatives aren't readers, so they don't really know what would help
or care.
you grow.
Right.
Yeah. So, because some people are readers and some people aren't. I know nothing about sports. I barely know what sports season it is, other than if you see something on the news about whether they're bending the knee or not or whatever. But there's different things that people are interested in, and you really can't fake that. If you don't have an interest in a certain topic, you can't fake it. You can say, "I appreciate you spend hours working on this and you want it to be good, but I don't really know what to say to help you," kind of thing. It looks like my screen's frozen up. I don't know if I should keep talking or not. I think I'm here.
All right. Sorry. Completely. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Sorry. My computer froze again. I don't know what this thing's problem is. And okay, so just for a warning, it is 8:29. It's liable to completely, once I fall off, my original self falls off, it's probably maybe seconds before the show is terminated.
Okay.
I don't know why my laptop has been doing this. I mean, literally I can't even move my mouse. It won't, it's completely frozen. And I haven't been doing anything but sitting right here This thing I'm not
Well,
a thing, so I don't know what its problem is. But
I went off on a little tirade there, so if there's a question you want to ask me.
Yeah, real quick. Well, so the first book in the series comes out at the end of October, right?
Yes.
And you're planning, I don't know, 8 at least, right, in the series, 10, 12.
I've already got titles in my little notebook for like 15. So I'm hoping it'll be a really nice long running series. And the characters are just fabulous. I don't know how other authors are, but they become alive to me. You know, I mean, I talk to them and not like in a crazy psycho way, but I admire them. Tommy is still growing. He's still growing into his own skin. But the other ones, they're all solid about knowing who they are and what they're interested in and what their goals are. So I think they have a lot of people they want to help in the future, and I'm kind of trying to interweave a little bit through the series. So like in book 1, there might be like a little puzzle piece about one of the characters, and then book 2 there's one more puzzle piece. So if you read the series all in order, you'll go one day, you'll read this one and read something and go, oh, that's what that was, those things going together and clicking, you know, for somebody that you know, like a little reward, I guess, for the people that are reading the whole series. But and of course some of those little puzzles they're not really a big enough idea for a whole book on their own, but it's a little thing about how they became who they are and interesting things about them, kind of thing, a little sideline, I guess. So, but yes, I do hope for it to be a very long running series.
And my little self has left, so we're still live. Hopefully it'll hang on for a few more minutes. Okay. Are you doing any book signings next year so that people can find you?
I haven't signed up for any yet, technically, but I'd like to go to Killer Nashville. I live in Tennessee, so Killer Nashville is where would still be close enough I could drive to it. And then there's a signing we do. There's a Maynardville Public Library that's a little bit north of Knoxville, and I did that this past year and hope to do that next year too. So, and it's one of those lovely little libraries that it's almost like a community center. Like families come in there. I got some little jars of bubbles for when the kids came through. I mean, obviously I had the candy thing, you know. I had some little goodie bags with tissues in them and pencils and all that kind of stuff. I haven't really so far got into the whole bookmarks, postmarks, because I didn't have Sad Sons out yet. I didn't have the cover design. So I'm going to have to ramp that up and learn out about how to do all that kind of promo stuff now. But it's fun being in front of people and talking about books. Like even at the Maynardville Library, one of the ladies came up and she started talking about, well, what would be appropriate for her 14-year-old granddaughter. And we started talking about C.S. Lewis and all sorts of books. And even though, I mean, I think most writers have somewhat of a foundation of reading. You know, I'm not going to write a Tolkien-esque book, but I've read Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and you know, so I can still talk about those and some of the themes and stories in them and all that stuff. And I went to Bottles and Wine in Kentucky, and it was so interesting because there was a blogger there that interviewed me. So it was weird being interviewed. And those were just, you know, they were writing down and recording. It wasn't filming kind of thing. But one of the questions one of the bloggers asked, and there was another blogger over there in the wings. The first blogger asked, what book made me cry? And I had to think a minute, and I finally had to say, I guess I have to say, you know, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all that. And she didn't ask me why. Because she went on to the next question. So I went on with the next questions too. You know, she'd asked me, you know, I obviously said I read Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes and all that stuff when I was younger. Well, when the next blogger came up, her grown daughter was with her, and she said, but those are good, uplifting books. Why'd they make you cry? And I said, oh. Or she said something like, they're not sad books. I said, oh no, the question wasn't what book did I think was sad? It was which book made you cry? And I was like, well, think about it. I mean, there's lots of little things, but that someone volunteered to sacrifice themselves for someone else. And this wasn't I have a split second, there's a bullet, I'm going to jump in front of it. This was I walked up and made this decision for you. I said, that's tear worthy. But I said, but even in the very beginning, little Lucy that comes out and says what I found and nobody believed her, you know, I mean, that's sad in a way. And all some of the other characters that failed people that they cared about and loved, and they had to do that human thing of how do I redeem myself and all that stuff. So, you know, the James McElroy character, or McAvoy, I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly right, but he didn't want to hurt them. He didn't want to give in, but he did. And then, you know, so all that stuff was very tear-worthy for me, kind of thing. So, but it's just one of those things where you go and you're around people and they're talking about their love of books, and you can't help but get excited and have a great time. I may not sell any books, but I still come home and I've been like, oh, I met this girl and she did, you know, kind of thing. So I have, you know, I come home with a bunch of business cards from the other authors I talk to and all that kind of stuff. So it's a blast going to things live and in person, but, and I'm sure I'll get better at it and better at figuring out what do I need to take and what do I need to have. I see all these other authors have these banners that they pull up, you know, and there's this big sign, and I just have I have a tablecloth I got at Target that I put over my table, and I got some of these, you know, things to hold up, and I did get a book rack because I do think that when the books are vertical on the table, it's a little bit more interesting than them just being flat and laid out. So there's just a ton of stuff to figure out, because not only